Do you mind if I've got a couple visitors from China?
No.
No, they can't come in?
No, I don't mind.
Oh, you don't mind? Okay.
Oh. Hi.
So my presentation is on YouTube. So
Okay.
I can just.
Did you email it to me already?
No. Do you want me to email you? I can email you.
Yeah, just the link. That way I can put it up on here.
Yes.
Go and do that. That'd be great. All right. How's everybody doing tonight? It's presentation night. Those are presenting tonight. Thank you for coming early. We got everybody in. We're just waiting on one here, and then we'll get started. Next week, last name beginning L through R. Get here about the same time everybody else did tonight. About folks started coming in about 7:15, and that was plenty of time to get all your presentations to me and test them, especially if you have video on them or something. Make sure you checked in. If you didn't do so up to this point, check in before you leave for 50 points. When each person comes up here to present, there'll be a survey link that everybody will need to click on. It's inside of the announcements. It's also inside of week 14, whichever one you want to go. If you go inside of, let's see, week 14, I'll show you where it's at. It's week 14 task, the survey link. Basically, you'll get, when you start presenting, just make sure and tell everybody your name. If you want to write up on the board, you may do so. What the title of your presentation is. And then you'll begin your presentation. Everybody has about 10 minutes. I'll give you a 1 minute warning or 2 minute warning in the back. I'll go like that, peace sign, let you know you have 2 minutes left. Let's say you have 2 minutes left, and you got 3 slides left or 4 slides left. If you have to skip a slide or go through it quickly, that's fine. Don't worry about that. You're not going to be graded down because of that. 10 minutes will go by pretty quickly, though. Those of you that have video, which a number of you do, same goes. If you think you need to forward fast a little bit or whatever, you'll be in control of it up here. Everybody that's doing a PowerPoint will have a clicker that you can advance your presentation. The right advances right, left advances left. The top middle, for everybody, even those doing video, you can press the top middle and it'll do the pointer. There's no cats in here we can play with, but you know, you point it up to the overhead. And then if you have any questions about the presentation, to save time, I'll have you post it in this format so we can go right to the next presenter. The order of presentations tonight, and by the way, did you get that email to me yet or no?
Yeah, it should be
cool.
coming to you right now.
All right, cool. Here's the order, and it's in no particular order. We'll do the videos first. And whose video is this here? This yours? Okay. So you're going to be first. Second video on DDoS. Gotcha. So that's the videos. And then on the PowerPoint, again, no particular order, fiber optics, you'll be first. Jenner. And then internet safety, second, Jose. And networking and game design, Jordan. And I think I just got your email. And you'll be last. Okay, let me check your email, make sure I got that real quick.
Hello.
All right, I paused it. All right, cool. And we'll just have you go full screen or whatever. That'll be fine. That'll work. Let's see here. Go back to our course. Any questions before we begin? So when the last presenter presents, I'll give a few directions on next week and the week after. Next week, again, is going to be the iteration. Let me make sure I got it correct here. And by the way, this vid, so you can watch these afterwards. It's a private link. I record these on YouTube. You can play it inside of week 14. It's being recorded right now, actually. So it can't be searched for on YouTube. It's in YouTube in my channel, but it's unsearchable. And so next week is L through R, and then last week is S through Z. Pizza party that night. I'm providing pizza. I usually get a cheese and a pepperoni, and then I'll have you guys bring everything else. So if I don't remember, if you'll remind me next week to pass around a sheet for everybody to kind of put down what you're going to bring. That way everybody's not bringing Lay's potato chips, which seems to be a popular, and cookies. Those two seem to be popular for college folks, including myself. I was in that category for years. Chips and cookies are the two easy ones. You can stop by a convenience store and get those on the way in. And so, but we'll make sure everybody doesn't bring that, just kind of a collective group of items, except for alcoholic beverages. Can't bring those. Now you can go afterwards if you like to, if you're of age. Have students do that every semester. It's up to you. But anyway, the last week of class, I'll know more when we get to 5-3 session. That week after is technically finals week. I think I might have mentioned this to you already. I do have to be in all my classes. This is my 20th year teaching, and they're making us actually be here for the final week, even though I don't need to be. So I'm going to be in the classroom on that final session, whenever the schedule is for us to have a final. I'm going to have refreshments, snacks, whatever, play music. You guys can come in here and relax and whatever during that time. So I'll let you know when that is. You're not required to come to that session, but I will have, by the way, some robots in here that you can play with. I'll bring in some games. I'll bring in some the Ozelbot robot. There's another robot we put together that you can kind of play with and code. I'm thinking about bringing in a drone as well, a small drone you can play with. So anyway, have some fun. We'll do that. I'll play some music. Sound good? All right. So if no further questions, let's go ahead and bring up the first presenter. And while she's coming up, go ahead and fire up that survey if you haven't already done so. Yeah, and let me try to see if I can close on my email real quick just to stop from the ching chang there. All right, cool. That'll help maybe. And I think I had it set. Let me make sure. Notification on, do not disturb is turned on. Good. We're good there. All right. So I will let you take the place here. And once you get the video started, if you want just to introduce yourself first, and then you can sit down and start the video, and then stand up, and then see if there's any questions.
The video does introduce.
Okay,
so
all right.
I got write my name up there and everything.
It's all yours, so let's pay attention and fire away.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Emma Buchanan, and I'm about VPNs, or virtual private networks. So I'm not sure about you guys, but my extent of working with VPNs had been in high school, where we were allowed to connect to the Wi-Fi, but they had blocked off certain sites, so we weren't able to access Facebook. YouTube was another big one that was blocked. I believe Twitter was also blocked, and Netflix, like all the major ones that you would want to access were all blocked. So the only way anybody ever got on the Wi-Fi was to be able to use just the thing we needed, or I mean, that was really it. Everything else was blocked, so it was really just websites, nothing. But we would connect to a VPN. The one that was most commonly used was a VPN called BetterNet, or if it still exists now, but that's the one that we used. And you would just download the app onto your phone. It was available for Android and iOS, and press a button, just connect me or whatever, and it would just connect you to the VPN, and suddenly you were able to access all of these sites. And nobody was really sure how it worked. It did, but nobody really cared as long as it unblocked the websites. I remember first hearing about it when somebody was like, "Oh yeah, you can totally get on these sites. You just gotta use one of these." I was like, "What is it?" And they had no clue, couldn't tell me a thing about it. But as long as it unblocked their website, they were willing to download it, which is kind of scary if you think about it. But that's what we used, and it worked. And I'm going to demonstrate usage of one later, but for a slightly different reason. But for now, we can talk about what a VPN really does. So a private network is a network that is private. It's small. It's usually, it's one location with, multiple units sort of interconnected inside of it. And what a VPN does is it sort of simulates thing, but on a larger scale. So you can have, you're here, you're in the US. You can connect to something like all the way in Russia. They have their little thing here, and you just connect right to it, and it looks like all of your browsing is coming from this place. So what you can do with that is essentially make your online browsing a little more anonymous, and that's what a lot of people use it for. They use it for being anonymous or to unblock websites like we talked about before. So I'm going to show a little demonstration of that. All right, so here we have the website, whatismyip.com. Simple website, just tells you what your IP address is. It gives you your v4, your v6, your local IP, and your location, and your ISP, your internet service provider. So we're just focusing on just the basic information here, like it knows your location, it gives you your IP. That's all standard. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on this VPN that I downloaded called Hotspot Shield. And we're going to connect to a server or a network in Russia. And then this page is going to refresh. And we're going to, nope, we're not going to see anything. All right, there we go. Just needed to change some information, sign in to the site. But now we have our different locations, really what we're looking at here. So it does think that we are browsing from Russia. So it does add the layer of, being anonymous, having your information be a little more private, not necessarily more secure. VPNs operate off of a couple different protocols. which I don't really have time to go into all the protocols, but there's a lot of different ones that are handled differently. And it's all basically just try and keep your browsing more private. It's not going to protect you from anything like viruses, you know, like clicking an ad and downloading some malware. It doesn't protect you from anything like that. It's just purely to make it so it's traceable. It's not foolproof in any way. Like, it's not like the best method out there to accomplish this thing. It's just an additional layer of security that will protect you from like mass surveillance or being an easy target on a public network somewhere. Like, you know, you go to a Starbucks and connect to their Wi-Fi, you know, that's a public place. People can do all sorts of things to public networks like that. So that's why a lot of people will run VPNs if they're in a public setting and they want to be a little more secure with what they're doing. So aside from staying more anonymous and protected or unblocking websites, there are some other uses for VPN. Businesses can use VPNs to sort of connect their locations together. So, you know, if they have someplace here and someplace here and someplace here, you know, these would be large geographical distances that aren't just like, you know, on one campus or something. They are able to use a VPN as a sort of link in between the networks, so they all can be connected to each other through the VPN link. So some things to be careful of if you decide to use a VPN. Like I mentioned before, you know, you're not safe from everything out there. There are basically anybody that really wants to get at your data and has the know-how can do so through a VPN even. It's just the idea of like mass surveillance and, you know, that sort of thing. That's all it's protecting you from. Browsing the web at like the most anonymous levels that you can get is left to certain other applications. I know there's a browser called Tor that is used to browse the web more anonymously. It's recommended by a lot of people for various different reasons. And there are actually some VPNs that will connect you through to Tor if you so choose, and keep you and your data even more private, more secure that way. But, you know, your data is always going to be out there somewhere. It's very hard to track through Tor. Tor is how difficult their data is to track. It sort of bounces your data around between a bunch of different points, so it's very difficult to track. But if you just use a basic VPN, you're not going to get that same sort of level of protection. So in short, VPNs, great to use if you just want more security in a public setting, or you want to connect a bunch of locations together virtually, even though they may be, you know, covering large geographical distance in between them. If you want any of them, they're great to use, but if you are looking for viruses and stuff, it's not gonna cover that. You need to use, you know, your antivirus software in conjunction with a VPN, because VPNs can be taken down pretty easily by any sort of malware or anything like that. So if you are looking for secure protection from those things, you're going to need to use a bunch of different things sort of with each other. And that is all the time that I have. So thanks for listening.
What was the chalkboard tool you used there?
Epic Pen.
What was it on?
Epic Pen.
Epic Pen?
Mm-hmm.
All right, good job.
Any questions? Anyone?
Kind of curious here. Do you use a specific VPN or you know a good one? Because I heard about it, never really looked into it.
I used BetterNet like a while ago. I'm not sure how well that one's doing still. I used one called Yoga VPN. That one worked really well. And the one I used on there was Hotspot Shield, which worked pretty well for that too. And then
What kind of birds do you have?
I have one cockatiel and one parakeet. And the cockatiel is new, and he's the one chatting in the background because he doesn't know how to be quiet.
Okay, so digital shoe chalkboard, Hotspot Shield.
Yes.
Is that right? Was a VPN? Is that free or cost?
It's free, but it has one of those like pro
in-app
things.
purchase type thing.
Yeah.
Oh, pro. Cool. Well, good job. Let's give her another hand. Great. All right, next up, and then go ahead and refresh your survey. Reload your survey again. All right, and it's all yours, sir.
Okay, so I am no great video editor by any means. There's a pause in here. I'd like to say that it was for dramatic effect, but it's because I missed it in editing. So you'll see it. But here we go. Good evening. My name is Tommy, and tonight I'm going to talk to you about distributed denial of service attacks or DDoSing. But before we get started, I would like to introduce you to my cat Benjamin. He is the only reason that I am here getting this degree, so this video is dedicated to him. So, what is DDoSing? A distributed denial of service or DDoS attack is an attempt to make an online service unavailable by overwhelming it with traffic from multiple sources. They target a wide variety of important resources from banks to news websites, and they present a major challenge to making sure that people can publish and access important information. Here's some quick facts before we get into the nitty-gritty. $150 is the price to buy a week-long DDoS attack on the black market. There are more than 2,000 DDoS attacks observed worldwide every single day. And 33% of downtime incidents are attributed to DDoS attacks. So, attackers build networks of infected computers known as botnets by spreading malicious software through emails, websites, and social media. Once infected, these machines can be controlled remotely without their owner's knowledge and used like an army to launch an attack against any target. Some botnets are millions of machines strong. Botnets can generate huge floods of traffic to overwhelm a target. These floods can be generated in multiple ways, such as sending more connection requests than a server can handle, or having computers send the victim huge amounts of random data to use up the target bandwidth. Some attacks are so big, they can max out a country's international cable capacity. Specialized online marketplaces exist to buy and sell botnets or individual DDoS attacks. Using these underground markets, anyone can pay a nominal fee to silence websites they disagree with or disrupt an organization's online operations. Again, a week-long DDoS attack capable of taking a small organization offline can cost as little as $150. There are 4 common categories of attacks: TCP connection attacks, volumetric attacks, fragmentation attacks, application attacks. There are also 2 ways attackers can amplify the traffic they send, through DNS reflection and charge-in reflection. So the first most common type of DDoS attack is the Transmission Control Protocol, or TCP connection attack. This is an attack that attempts to occupy the victim's connection. These attempts to use up all the available connections to infrastructure devices such as load balancers, firewalls, and application servers. Second type of DDoSing attack is a volumetric attack. These attempt to consume bandwidth either within the target's network or service or between the target network or service and the rest of the internet. These attacks are simply about causing congestion. The third type of DDoS attacks are fragmentation attacks. These attacks send a flood of transmission control protocol, or TCP, or use of datagram protocol, UDP, fragments to a victim, overwhelming the victim's ability to reassemble the streams and severely reducing performance. And the final most common type of DDoS attack are application attacks. These attacks attempt to overwhelm a specific aspect of an application or service and can be effective even with very few attacking machines, generating a low traffic rate, which makes them difficult to detect and mitigate.
That's the awkward pause.
So, the first of the two types of attack amplification is DNS reflection. By forging a victim's IP address, an attacker can send small requests to a DNS server and ask it to send the victim a large reply. This allows the attacker to have every request from its botnet amplified as much as 70 times in size, making it much easier to overwhelm the target. The second type of attack amplification is charge-in reflection. Most computers and internet-connected printers support an outdated testing service called charge-in, which allows someone to ask a device to reply with a stream of random characters. Charge-in can be used as a means for amplifying attacks, similar to DNS attacks. So far, the biggest DDoS attack ever recorded happened in March 2018. GitHub, a web-based hosting service for development, went down for 18 minutes, suffering from an attack of 1.35 terabits per second of traffic. After 10 minutes, GitHub's digital assessment system contacted Akamai Prolexic, their DDoS mitigation service. They were able to fix the problem. This was considered an amplification attack due to the attackers using a botnetless method involving memcached servers, which is becoming more and more popular. So, why did I choose to do my research paper about DDoSing? Well, it's simple. I, like many of you, probably, am a gamer. And my two big games that I have played throughout my time have been League of Legends, which was through all of my high school career. I was really into that. I played the very early competitive seasons 2 and 3, and then I pretty much stopped after that. And then more recently, I played PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. And DDoSing has affected both of these games in various ways, whether it be the attackers trying to take down the servers, or, well, I guess that's basically it. So, my personal DDoSing story that I have to tell you, it happened in a game called RuneScape, which was for the longest time the world's biggest MMO RPG. It's a game that's based in England, and it was super, super popular when I was in elementary school. But I continued to play it throughout middle school and high school and college, unfortunately. I've been playing the game for about 13 years. Now, back when I was younger, I got involved in PKing, which is like PvP, player versus player combat, where you can go into the wilderness, which is the area for players to kill each other, and fight. And whatever you and your opponent are wearing, whoever dies, all of their equipment gets dropped. So, and this was probably around in like the late 2000s. I was playing, and I went out into the wilderness to do some PKing, and I had all of my really expensive gear on, because I was pretty decent at PKing, and I went out there, and this guy challenged me to a fight. We went out there, we started fighting. I was killing him. Then all of a sudden, my internet went out. And I couldn't figure out what had happened. I had a perfect internet connection for the time. And I really didn't know why. So I did a little research into it, and I found out that the guy that I was fighting has actually been reported for DDoSing before. So, moral of the story is don't take your equipment into the wilderness unless you want to lose it. So, DDoSing and video games have had a very interesting history so far. In September 2012, Riot Games brought legal action in the face of attacks against the MOBA League of Legends, again, which I played. January 2013, the top Call of Duty Black Ops 2 player on the Xbox 360 reset his multiplayer statistics to avoid being a target for attacks. In April of 2013, Chinese Dota 2 League T1 faced DDoS attacks during a tournament. Officials had to declare winners based on match standings before the attacks launched. In May of 2013, early access for the MMO WildStar was disrupted by attacks. In November of 2013, DICE had to deploy emergency servers to defend against attacks on Battlefield 4. And in January of 2015, attacks against Steam, Origin, League of Legends, Battle.net, all major gaming platforms. They took place, and it took a while for them to get back. And yeah.
Yeah.
DDoSing is a widespread issue that affects many people throughout the year. And it's not only gamers, it can be banks, it can be the news websites. It's against the law, it is wrong. So, don't do it.
Individuals are paid to bring back down these gaming servers, correct? More than $150. They're paying some big bucks, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially for like the big platforms. Like if someone took down Steam, I'm sure all of you guys know that'd be like horrible.
Right. So I'm guessing they're taking down gaming competitor.
Could be. Or people trying to ransom as well. I know that's a big thing too.
Yeah.
So yeah. Any questions, comments? Does anyone play RuneScape so I don't feel like a big nerd by myself?
Anybody else play any games you mentioned? Raise your hand. Oh, we got a gamer back here.
Pub Bands League.
Yeah, League of Legends. We play whole night, like in the comics.
Nice.
Awesome. Let's give him another hand. Good job. All right. Next present. Close this out. And make sure I get the right one up here. Fiber optics, is that right?
Yeah.
All right, let's get Jenna our attention. It's all yours, sir. Reset your survey.
All right, my name is Jenner, and the title of mine is Fiber Optic Cables. Okay, the number one upgrade network administrators wanted when I did my cold calls last week was fiber optics. The reason this upgrade is in such a high demand is because of how integral network cables are to any business. They connect networks that are across the street in another state or even between the Atlantic. There are many components that make up the fiber optic cable. The jacket layer protects the innards of the cable from weather and chemicals. The strengthening fibers are then used to add some structural support to the innards. Coating is the middle layer that reinforces the fiber core. The cladding is then added to refract the light coming from the core. And finally, the core is the glass or plastic that transports the data signal in the form of light. All these components come together to form a powerful fiber optic cable. Switching to any new technology can be tedious and expensive. With the fiber optics, however, the advantages far outweigh the risk. Upgrading to fiber optics provides many benefits over traditional copper wiring. One of the major benefits is with bandwidth capabilities. Fiber optics provide over 1,000 times more bandwidth than copper wiring, allowing more information to be sent over a short period of time. Fiber optic cables also have a lower level of degradation as light travels through them. Degradation means the reduction of signal quality, which affects copper wires much more heavily than fiber optic wires. With less degradation, fiber can stretch for farther distances without sacrificing speed or data. This makes fiber much more reliable than copper. The last benefit of fiber is security. Since fiber optics do not transmit electricity, they cannot be tapped in the same way copper wires can be. Copper wiring is also permissible to cause electric fire if cut or damage, something that fiber optics are less likely to. Okay. Therefore, many fiber optics can be used in different applications. Fiber optics' main purpose is to transmit signals from one location to another. The way in which this data is sent and received varies depending on the application. One of the major applications is for communication systems. Areas like networking and telecommunication rely on fiber optics to carry streams of data and voice over large distances. This data is then converted into a required medium and displayed in the field of mechanics, however, fiber optics can be used to see difficult areas to observe, like interior jet engines and sewer lines. Fiber optics can also be used in the medical field. Medical imaging is accomplished by sending a pulse of light to the body with a fiber optic cable. The light shines on a targeted area of the body, and it gives the doctor a clear picture of the problem. Every year, through innovation, new applications are being found for fiber optic cables. Fiber optic cables are shrouded in a jacket to protect it from harsh environment. Different jacket types are used depending on the situation or the location of the cable. The most common type of jacket is PVC. PVC is a multi-purpose jacket that can be used, or material that can be used in all types of environments. It's a low cost and widely available, and makes it extremely popular in all fields. Another jacket material is PUR. PUR is extremely elastic and has a high memory, making it perfect for coil cord applications. It is also flexible in low temperature environments, which adds to its versatility. Thermoplastic CPE is used in extremely harsh conditions, protecting against weather, oil, and chemicals. CPE is perfect for factories and severe outdoor applications. Each jacket material provides different levels of protection based on the needs of the consumer. Picking the right jacket material is an essential part of fiber optics. Choosing the wrong jacket could lead to a damaged cable, putting the network in jeopardy. A strong fiber optic connection is crucial for data to be sent accurately. Although fiber optics are more efficient than traditional copper wiring, they still suffer from attenuation. Attenuation is reduction of signal power as it is transmitted from sender to receiver. This is caused by passive media components such as connectors and the cable itself. The signal must be strong enough to overcome attenuation, otherwise the data delivery will be reduced. The spreading of a signal over time is another form of signal loss called dispersion. There are two types of dispersion, chromatic and modal. Chromatic dispersion is the spreading of light over time resulting from different wavelengths. And modal dispersion is the spreading of light based on the path taken by each wavelength. Both of these can lead to reduced signal strength, causing the bandwidth capacity to suffer. Even though the fiber optics are exponentially more efficient than copper, they are still not perfect. The core of the fiber cables can be made from two different materials, plastic or glass. Both choices work in the same way, providing light a pathway to reach its destination. However, there are small differences that should be considered. Plastic fiber cables are cheaper than glass fiber, less likely to experience attenuation, and are more flexible. Glass cables, on the other hand, are more durable and corrosive in wet environments. Glass cabling can also transmit both infrared and visible light, whereas plastic can only transmit visible light. Choosing the correct core type for an application will be essential to get the most benefits that each core can provide. In a scenario where the fiber optic is constantly being bent, a plastic core should be used. In harsh environments where severe temperature plays a role, glass should be chosen. Understanding the difference between plastic and glass fiber cores and knowing which one to implement is paramount for a successful network. If handled carefully, fiber optic cables can be harmless. However, preventative measures must be taken to avoid any injury. When handling fiber optics, refrain from drinking or eating. Tiny glass particles from the core can float in the air during installation and land in food. Accidentally ingesting these particles could lead to a serious injury. Refrain from touching your face with your hands, as those particles could lodge into your eyes. During installation or testing, also wear protective safety glasses to reduce the risk of light. Powerful light can cause loss of vision if exposed for a long period of time. Power can also reduce the risk of injury in any workplace environment. In conclusion, fiber optic cables are integral to any business or small or large. They provide multiple event wiring. They can be used in many different applications for networks or medicine. They also come in different forms depending on the situation and environment. Although imperfect, fiber optic cables are here to stay.
Next up, go ahead and reset your survey. Here we go, sir.
Okay. Go ahead. Just hit right.
Yep. And the pointers in the middle if you want to use it. All right, let's give Jose our attention.
Hi guys, how's it going today? Today we're going to talk about something basic, something important, internet safety. How is this relevant? Since we're in the field of networking, now more than ever, we're working with many people of many different ages, of different groups of type of people, some being literate, some not being literate when it comes to computers. So us as a networking community, or just techs, whatever you want to call us, we need to let people know that don't know about this. Okay? First, I'd like to talk about the software aspect of this in the form of malware, which I'm going to cover three types. It's going to be viruses, ransomware, and spyware. Okay. Let's start with viruses. Viruses are software. You can get them through a variety of ways. Most people know it through downloading some form of pirated software, downloading software that's not legitimate in any means. Sometimes even like games that pretend to be games that aren't really legitimate. Another way is BitTorrenting and obviously pornography websites as well. Okay. How a virus works is once the software goes into your machine, considering that you're on one of those, of course, or any type of machine that can catch a virus, it starts slowly damaging your computer. Damages to the point that you can't use it anymore. How would you notice this? Well, you would notice that it would be really slow and things aren't running as normal. Kind of hard to diagnose in some sense if it doesn't just pop up to you. So it's always good to know about that. I'm going to move on to ransomware. Ransomware is as well as software. Essentially what it does is it locks up your computer. So once you install this malware, it's going to lock up your computer and it's going to say, hey, you need to pay me to unlock your information. And like many people, you save pictures, important documents there, even sometimes that tax documents, which isn't very safe, but you need these documents. So it's going to force you to pay for it. Just because you pay for it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get that back. Just remember that. Don't do it. Find some other way to get that document back to you, those documents back. And then finally, spyware. Spyware is a little bit more under the rug type thing. It works in the background. It's kind of silent. Sometimes even the most strongest antivirus, anti-spyware services don't catch it. What it does is it extracts information. How that works is when you're typing something, it'll monitor your keystrokes. So if you go onto your online banking, you go onto, I don't know, some sort of game service, social media, it's going to keep tracking those passwords and those patterns. And then eventually it's going to hit a gold mine, and then it's going to start stealing your information. So that's the three types that I wanted to go over. Move forward with that. We kind of covered the causes. Like I said, just stay away from nasty things that we're not supposed to download. I recommend that in any of these situations, you give it a shot with some sort of malware software. Most internet service providers give you some form of protection at nothing. It's just for your protection. But in the case that your ISP does not provide that to you, there's certain open source software. I use personally malware, Malbytes, and then Avast antivirus. These are just all open source. So in the situation that you don't have it, or you think that the one that the ISP gives you is too slow and too groggy, give those a try. They might work for you. And then if none of that works, there's always somebody that can help you, a technician. Get it ASAP if you have it. If you think that you've been a victim of spyware, obviously change all your passwords if you're a victim of spyware. Okay. The next things I like to talk about are scams. A lot of them are based in forums. I'm just going to go over two basic ones. Phone scams. So like many, even me, I've gotten a call from who knows where in the world from a gentleman saying that he's from Microsoft. You have a virus on your computer. Is this so? Probably not. This person is trying to scam you. He's trying to have you go to your computer, remote access into the computer, and then by some means or form, trick you into buying fake software. Kind of like how ransomware works. And then those guys, if they know their game, they can install ransomware on the computer, and then keep you in that cycle of paying for essentially nothing. Okay. And then this is another common one. I'll get into it a little bit more when we hit emails and stuff like that, which is like just scams that you get on your email. This is the common one. It's a lottery one. As you see, it looks like a Mega Millions thing. You know, a lot of us would like to get that email. It's fraud. More than likely, it contains a link. It contains something that is asking you to give your information. So they're asking you, hey, give us your routing number and your account number. We're going to wire you money. We're going to wire you set amount. Not true. If you're ever a victim of these, unfortunately, there's not much to do, but you can report it to the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the IC3. You can also report it to the Federal Trade Commission if it's like a website or a vendor that's selling you something that they didn't sell you. Okay. I'm going to go more into detail with that. Like I said, this is another example of like a scam or a phishing. So as you see, the image doesn't really show it, but it says www.bankofamerica.com. It's not bankofamerica.com. If you hover over it, it shows a completely little link. That link is going to take you to not Bank of America's website. It's going to take you to a website that contains, it's just pretty much asking you for your information, your online banking information, like your password and all that stuff. It might even blatantly ask you for your social security number. Something as delicate as that. Just be careful of that. The main thing that I would recommend receiving an email like that is always suspect that it's fraud, even if you think that it's from the bank. Hover over the actual link to see if it actually takes you to the vendor's website. Most of the time, that's a good thing. This is like a common one. It's an FBI fraud alert. It was very common, like in the inception of the internet, that the FBI wants you for X or Y thing. Essentially, it's kind of like a form of just getting your information and trying to drain your account, essentially. Okay. We've gone a long way when it comes to emails and phishing. Most good email services have a spam blocker, which they didn't have a long time ago. What that does is certain keywords are scam words that I call them scam words, and it sort of generates that this email is fraudulent and it'll go away. I got an email like a couple weeks ago. I was going to put it on there, but I couldn't find it because my spam blocker obviously erased it. But it was like, we're from the Republic of, I don't know, somewhere in Africa, and you can get gold for a very low rate in exchange for a small amount of money. This is a scam, obviously. Nobody's going to be looking for you specifically for that. And always remember that if it's too good to be true, it probably is. I wanted to talk a little bit more about online to real life interactions when it comes to like selling and buying stuff online. As Facebook rolled out the marketplace, Craigslist was way before it, and there's apps like Code exactly the same. You essentially meet with the person or the vendor, and you buy or sell whatever you're selling to them in person. Safety, very important. Always meet up in a public place. You never know what that person's intention is. If it is to harm you, if it is to maybe rob you, if you're selling something of a lot of value. When it comes to all these vendors, when you go to Facebook, you can actually see the person's profile. That way you can discern that person is, kind of a reliable source to buy something from, not somebody that can potentially hurt. Okay. And then when it comes to Craigslist, you're pretty much in the dark. You don't know who the vendor is at all. So that one, when you're buying something from Craigslist, you have to be extremely more careful than it would be on Facebook or Letgo, where they have to register to a certain degree. There's some form of authentication, a layer of protection. Okay. This just goes along with what I was saying. This is an extra topic here. Just meet up in a public place. Starbucks, granted, buy something. You don't want to get arrested. Always accept cash, never accept checks. You have no way of verifying a check. There's no way. Okay. I just wanted to incorporate some websites here that we just spoke about. We spoke about IC3.gov, which is the FBI reporting website, FTC.gov, which is the Complaint for Federal Trade Commission. If you're a part of victim, try to get in contact with your local authorities. I'm not sure how much they'll help you. They might just guide you back to the IC3 website. You never know. There might be something in town that can help you with that. This is just a couple of sources for the images that I got. That's it. All right, thank you.
Letgo service, what was that now about?
That's an application free to download. It's kind of like the Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. You make a profile, you have a little image of yourself, and you just sell things.
Like an online garage sale?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. Like you can just
Everybody
say
use that, by the way?
Yeah.
You guys like it? I've heard about it. Just not heard anybody use
it's really good.
it. So you recommend it? Okay, cool. A little bit more secure than Craigslist, I'm guessing, too?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, it's good, man. Good job.
Thank you.
All right. Go ahead and reset your survey. Alrighty. We'll let you hit play and, oh, wrong one. I had the wrong one. I'm sorry.
I mean, I'll go after him.
No, I it's on the last one. Thought it was. My bad. That it?
Yep.
Cool. All right, and then here's your thing. Yep. All right, let's give Jordan our attention.
Hey guys. Hello. How's everybody? Same as 10 minutes ago.
Fantastic.
So this is not a finished PowerPoint. So forgive me if I digress a little along the way. I'll try to keep myself on track. Yeah, it's on networking and game design. Today, it's a lot of internet games. They tend to fit, well, they need to balance the use of data, player information, communicate across the networks, whatever networks they're running on. And designers have to kind of navigate the constraints that come with that in order to prevent a game from sucking. Network games are actually a lot older than most people would probably assume. I think the earliest ones came out in the early 80s, but they weren't necessarily commercial games. Hold on. Okay. They weren't necessarily commercial games. They were more like passion projects from students or faculty at different universities over ARPANET. They were really simple, really heavily abstracted, so they didn't really have to fit themselves into the network yet. But as they grew, they did. Yeah, I already went over that. Anyway, data throughput, latency, and topology are the three big concerns that most designers have. Topology is pretty solid these days. It doesn't change much. Latency is the biggest concern currently, and data throughput through the 80s and 90s was pretty big. Not so much now that everyone has high-speed internet. Still a concern. People could get DDoS, as you mentioned. Let's do the thing. All right, so yeah, data throughput. It's not a priority today, like I said. But in the early days, designers had to, from the ground up on their game design, they had to make sure that they were assuming the appropriate amount of information could be communicated across their networks. Because these were just, ARPANET, very small, not very quick compared to today, and very low data limits. Minimal information. Good. Anyway, latency. Always measured in round trip time with games. It's basically just the time between your click and you seeing the reaction to that click through the game. It's not really a concern for simple tabletop or turn-based games. In a turn-based game, if it took 400 milliseconds for your opponent's data to come through, cares. But in action games like shooters, racing games, sports games, anything, it becomes really jarring and can turn a lot of players off. So it's a big concern for the designers. Yeah, possibly the largest concern today. Okay. The first big leap in latency, what's the word? Well, considerations, was called lockstep, or anyway. The goal of it was to ensure that there was an even playing field across the entire game. It was a little too heavy-handed, though. It forced the game to only render frames once every player had completed a turn being a sequence of communications. So games like Doom, I believe Quake, no, not Quake, Duke Nukem, use these games. I mean, it worked, but it's a very iffy thing. Like, you imagine if you play a game and then just suddenly the game pauses at random intervals the whole time. It's not very enjoyable for anybody. So that was pretty quickly replaced with the latency compensations. Let's see. I just jumped track. Anyway, topology. The earliest games being the ARPANET games and other early things, but also early commercial gaming. That's just next to that one. Used a terminal mainframe structure. The computers were mostly dummies connecting to a smarter mainframe that would use time sharing. Hold on. Time sharing to allow multiple users to connect. After that, peer-to-peer mesh became very popular. All of the games through the 90s used this, basically. And then around the turn of the century, we switched to more client-server type setups. And here's here. Just to give a little context to the changes, will also help me keep on track. A little history. ARPANET gone over that a bunch. Games such as Mud, Mad, and Maze War, these are the types of games that were developed in universities by students and faculty. MUD stands for Multi-User Dungeon. It's basically D&D in ASCII format on computers. Very interesting looking. I think I have here. ASCII art in the top left there. That's Maze Wars. These games are really, you can tell, they're very simple, very heavily abstracted. So they didn't, like, latency wasn't the huge issue here. If you had latency, it was very difficult for the player to detect, and therefore not a big problem for the designers. If the player can't detect it, like, you know, what they don't know won't hurt them is kind of the philosophy. Let's see. Anyway, moving on, we get into commercial gaming. This is where games start focusing on visual fidelity and runtime execution. They wind up bumping up against the limitations of networking. Lag becomes very impactful and annoying, and everyone hates it. We have, you know, if anyone's played a game, you know when somebody's just zipping around on the screen, and you're just like, I'm not even playing anymore. I'm just struggling to do anything. So these games started developing techniques to reduce the impact of latency. A lot of these, maybe I should read these slides. So, already said all that. Hey, Doom and quick. Anyway, I want to talk about these. So I already discussed lockstep. Peer-to-peer kind of goes hand in hand with lockstep. You kind of need that topology to work, get lockstep to work. With server client, there's a lot of room to grow. There was a technology developed soon after we switched over to server client by id Software. I don't know if you guys are big into gaming business, but John Carmack is a kind of a code guru. He developed this system called client-side prediction. And what it does is it basically starts assigning prioritization to the server and allows clients to be slaves to it. I should actually explain further. In the lockstep method, all clients ran a sort of sister client. Like they all shared one client, and they had to agree. If they did not agree, that would cause a desynchronization, and whoever desynchronized would just not be allowed to play anymore. They couldn't reconnect because you can't reinstantiate the game quickly enough to catch everybody again on that connection. But that was one of the big drawbacks of the peer-to-peer lockstep. Server client, client-side prediction allows us to connect, in and out of games freely, and it also allows us to have a soft synchronization instead of a hard synchronization. The hard synchronization is what caused games to have to freeze while rendering. With the soft synchronization, there's no longer actually synchronization. It's kind of a PR term. It's actually an illusion of synchronization. Most games today, when you see other people running around in your client or driving around, whatever game you're playing, that's not the state they're seeing. They're seeing something probably slightly different from you, from their perspective, and also the people they're seeing that you're seeing might be different in location or game state. Let's see. So what this does for us, I mean, it sounds kind of cheap and lazy, but what it does for us is it allows us to start creating other optimizations, such as the two following that, favor the shooter and score grades. That's its grades. These are sort of packet prioritizations, like I've said before. Favor the shooter is basically saying if a player is trying to score a kill at first-person shooter, because that's what it's referencing. If a player is trying to shoot another player, that player's packets, well, when they're sending them to the server, they're going to take priority over the player being shot. So the player being shot tries to run, the player shooting has the advantage. If the player running, ducks behind cover, but on the other player's side, he hasn't hit that yet, he gets shot down, the game's going to snap him back and correct him. The reason they do this is just through studies. They found that most players find it far more jarring and upsetting when they miss out on a kill or a score, point, whatever you want to call it in whatever game. So they prioritize that. And that allows for further prioritization as you get more and more nuanced games. Like one game today is Overwatch. They have a special system in place that has favor the shooter, but allows players to counter the favor the shooter with a ability. Some abilities in that game. It's very different compared to other shooters. Other shooters, you shoot, and if you got shot, you got shot. You try to shoot other people. Yeah. And so yeah, I can't read. There we go. Anyway, Overwatch it's kind of a counter. There's abilities in that game that allow you to reflect other people's attacks. So they had to do that in order to not allow the favor the shooter system to step on the overall game system's toes. Sports raids, kind of like the opposite scenario of favor the shooter. If two people fire on each other, I'll try this again. If two people fire on each other, the game will give the player with the worst connection a bit of like a get out of jail free card. If their packet came in and its timestamp is earlier than they died on the timestamp of the person with the better connection, the game will give them a kill too, which is kind of controversial among gamers. Some people don't like that. Anyway, that is only like a portion of my actual research, but I did not finish this PowerPoint, so that's all of it.
It's good to hear. Good job.
Questions?
All right. Oh, you're fine. Okay. Good. All righty. Last up here, go ahead and switch your surveys. All right. All yours.
I'll have to, I made it a little long, so I'm going to have to skip part of it at some point. FYI.
All right, so yours.
Hello. Today we're going to talk about VPNs. What they are, who uses them and why, and of course how they work. So what is a VPN? Virtual Private Network. Well, a VPN is a way for us to connect to a private network using a public network. Usually now that's the internet. So businesses really take advantage of this because businesses have confidential information that they need to keep secure for their business and for their customers. And one way to do this that's been used for a very long time is using leased lines. Now, leased lines are very expensive, and they're physical lines. You have a physical connection from one office to another. Virtual private networking allows these offices to connect securely at a much more affordable cost. We'll look at that a little bit later. Now, businesses are not the only ones taking advantage of VPNs. Individual users also use VPNs for a variety of reasons. Now, one of these reasons that we all think of is piracy. Now, I don't recommend piracy, you shouldn't do it. But if you were to do it, you'd want to keep it secure. You don't want your ISP finding out that you've been downloading things illegally. So many people use them for that, although again, not recommended. Another reason though, is if we look to other countries, and then we really see the benefits of VPNs. China has a lot of restrictions on the internet. It is not the same as it is in America. For instance, they ban Facebook and they ban Google, YouTube, and others. So users in that country who want to be able to use those platforms have to go around the government. One way to do that is through VPNs. And we'll talk about how they do that again a little bit later. And there's other reasons too. As an individual user in the US, there are certain services, certain videos, sporting programs that may only be broadcast in another country. And while those services offer online streaming for those programs, they're only available to residents of that country. Through using a VPN, you can appear that you are located someplace else. And this is a huge benefit to VPNs because now we can log on to, let's say, Switzerland and watch all of the Switzerland sporting events that I'm sure you have. Let's look back at why businesses are choosing to use VPNs. As I said before, the old way to do it, and this has been around since the 1950s, was to lease lines. And this costs thousands of dollars, many thousands of dollars every month. So if a business needs to have a connection and lease lines are so costly, VPNs seem like the perfect solution. So a VPN is essentially a wide area network. And there are different types of VPNs that a company might choose to set up. One type is called a remote access VPN. Now, remote access is kind of just like how it sounds. Say a company has 100 salesmen in the field every day. They need a way to get those salesmen connected to the internet and connected to, more importantly, their network, their files, their programs. So they set up a remote access VPN. Now, many companies don't have the resources to do this themselves, so there are companies that will do it for them. And the user then connects to a network access server that has been set up by this company, and it allows them to access the company's network. This is known as a user to LAN connection. Another type of connection is a LAN to LAN connection. In a LAN to LAN connection, you're connecting office with office of the same company being connected. That's called an intranet connection. Another type of connection is called an extranet connection. That's where you're connecting an office of one company with an office of a partner company. And is very, very useful and, as I said, very affordable. Let's look at some numbers. While lease lines may cost many thousands of dollars a month to maintain, VPNs are so much cheaper by comparison. There is a company called Perimeter 81. Perimeter 81 offers VPN services to businesses. Their rate, $10 per team member. It's a pretty good deal. If you have 100 team members, that means it's $1,000 a month, which may sound like a lot to some, but when you're comparing it to the cost of a lease line, there's really no comparison. Aside from that, they offer custom plans to enterprise companies with many, many thousands of employees. And again, the savings is huge. Before we move on to why users are using VPNs, I want to read you a quote from Cisco. about the advantages of a VPN in the business world. It states, many e-business initiatives, such as workforce optimization, customer care, e-commerce, and corporate communication, often depend on an unprecedented levels of network access and agility. Pursuing these initiatives requires complex networking, dedicated IT resources for 24-hour monitoring and management, and cost-effective integrated voice and data services. In the face of these demands, many large businesses are reassessing their corporate networking infrastructures and seriously considering out-tasking alternatives, such as carrier-managed public networking solutions. Service providers offering managed IP VPN services can help your business meet today's challenges. And what this is referring to is a company like Cisco or another company who's taking over the VPN services. They're giving resources and providing tools for companies, and unprecedented, like they said, in customer service. We know that from Cisco. Now, let's talk about why individuals are using VPN services. We already went over it a little bit, but I just want to stress a few more points. If you're an individual in a public area using a public Wi-Fi, you are extremely susceptible to somebody jumping into the network and seeing what you're doing and getting access to your information. This is, I think we can all agree, not a very good thing. So if you're in a public place, you're using a public Wi-Fi network, it is highly recommended by almost all the tech experts, especially those at Gizmodo, that you're using a VPN to protect your information. While a VPN, even if they can get into the VPN, the data is encrypted. And we're going to talk about some of those technical aspects now. Yes. VPNs use a process called tunneling. Now, what this means is you're basically tunneling, creating a direct connect from one point to another. And all of the information that goes through the tunnel is encrypted, as long as they're using the right protocols. So there's various protocols that can be used for tunneling to create this tunnel. One of the most popular protocols that's used today, has been around for a very long time, is point-to-point tunneling protocol, in short, PPTP. And this is a tunneling protocol that was developed by Microsoft. It's still highly used today, and it's known for being very fast. It's a very fast tunneling protocol. And this protocol does not have, and I want to stress this, it does not have any encryption built into it. For the encryption, it is partnered with another protocol, Microsoft Point-to-Point Encryption. Now, also stands MPPE is the acronym for that. Now, these two together create the tunnel, and MPPE creates the encryption.
Skipping ahead, sorry. The rest is just protocols.
Cost effectiveness over leased lines when connecting offices. And users have a variety of reasons why they and connect to Facebook country, and use them to hide from their internet servers, keep their data secure, and especially in public places, using those public networks without a VPN, you're leaving yourself at serious risk. So if you have any questions, I'll be standing right in front of you, I imagine, at this moment. So ask away.
Questions?
What's your name?
My name is Barry. Last name is Naylor. N-A-I-L-O-R. N-A-I-L-O-R. Okay.
And I'll post the rest of your video along with everybody else's PowerPoint. Will be uploaded along with the presentation on time. So the stuff he wasn't able to show, you'll be able to watch it as well. All right, let's give another hand, John. All right, well, everybody knows who's going next week. And then remind me, if I don't remember next week, to pass around that sheet of paper for the final session, which is 2 weeks from tonight. A great job on the presenters. Can we get all the presenters one more hand before we go? Good job. All right, well, we are done, and we'll see group 2 next week. Get here about 15 minutes prior to class, which will be about 7:15. All right? All right, we'll see you. Enjoy the weather.